remark. If you can not react, thank you so much. Ludovico Sepe posted into the chat that some Teams versions are not allowing for reactions to messages. I will find a spontaneous solution for that. And also to mention that we have just started recording this event. If you don't wish to be recorded, please feel free to leave the event now, and then you can watch the recording later on when we post it onto our website. Okay, and now over to you, Martin.
Well, thanks a lot. It's really exciting to see and talk to all the experts here, many of which I think are much more knowledgeable on these things and really partially part of it. So I think the key is in the future to have global systems of interacting sensors, animals, that tell us what's happening in the environment, and especially have that basically as a novel Earth observation system that is in addition to the satellites that we have now and other systems. Now, for the early detection of zoonotic diseases, I think we have all these animals go around the planet. We already have roughly 7.3 billion locations of 1,500 species in MoveBank. This is a community effort, so a bottom-up effort around the world where thousands of groups are involved. Many of you are, and I think that's a very exciting development. Now, the key is that we can really tap into what we call the sixth sense of animals. This is nothing magic, nothing crazy. It's a physical property of interacting sensors, that you have a novel sensing system, an emergent new property. And this is what we get with Google traffic. This is also what we get with animals if we link their information together. Now, what I would like to talk today about is what we need. We need animals with wearables, intelligent sensors. These wearables can then analyze health on board. We need a global network. That's very important, that we can, from anywhere on the planet, send this information in real or near real time, and then show a few applications of where this could be going. But I think the future is wide open and really exciting developments. Now, today we can basically tag anything from a butterfly to a rhino. Here, a rhino with a solar ear tag that is detecting the behavior, the proximity to other rhinos, the proximity to other animals in these areas, and also the health and the state of this rhino. We can also do that in other species. It all needs adaptations to the species-specific wearable. This is a wearable in a pangolin, works fine, survived the lion attack, is also not preventing reproduction. So all of these things are now possible really as wearables. You can also scale up, for example, here, a system in tagging deer. The deer puts his head in a little machine. It's checked whether it has already a tag. It's getting a tag. And then immediately later, it's coming back. It's slightly startled initially, but now it is tagged. We don't have any interference. It's all working fine. This can now also be done in birds, for example. You see here black storks with an ancient leg band. This is the one on their left foot, and the electronic leg band on the other foot. And that is sending data from now anywhere in Europe, in the future around the world, but up to 100 GPS points a day, the behavior of these animals, everything. And you see also in white storks, even this white stork tag that is a little shitty from the defecation is still working. This was a bird that was killed by electrocution, but still the tag was working. But you see, you can scale up. These things cost now between 20 to 50 to 80 bucks. This is not the kind of tag that we had in the future. It's much more intelligent, much cheaper, and much better. But we can scale up even more. We have recently worked with a company, Tractive, that does trackers for cats and dogs. In this case, we want to see whether these animals can forecast events in the environment. But what you see here are the first 4,500 of those anonymized in Munich. You can see the Oktoberfest, you can see games of FC Bayern by just looking at the animals. This is not what we want in the end. We just want to calibrate our system with these tags during these events, because we think that that could in the future be very important also for disease detection. But it shows that we can upscale very rapidly because Tractive has data all around the world. This is what we're getting now since about 2 weeks or so, 45,000 tags from Tokyo, from London, from Reykjavik, from Los Angeles, and so on. So this is a truly scalable system for now, just mostly in the cities. What can these variables do? Well, if you calibrate them here, 3-axis acceleration, so you see time from left to right and the movement in space of these animals, in this case a cat, for calibration, you see a massive difference in how you interpret these data, and this can be done on board now. So you can detect what is the animal doing, but also if it is healthy or not. And the really exciting part is Rory Wilson, pioneer in this field, and Emily Shepard from Swansea and their team have just submitted a paper showing that the analysis of these data is becoming so much better. On the right, for example, you can see a bat in empty or full flight, or a penguin walking empty or full. This is a massive difference. It can be quantified. And this means we can, from here, from our desks, determine whether a bat in the Congo has had a nice meal or not, or whether a penguin in the Antarctic has come back from a foraging trip empty or full. So very exciting. And what it needs, obviously, is communication, a communication network, a cheap communication network, one that is optimized for these very small tags. And that is also partially there in the areas where we have a lot of people, that we have the Internet of Things. It works beautifully, different systems, LoRa, Sigfox, whatever. We are using Sigfox a lot because it has a very large range. We are sometimes sending over 300 kilometers. But we are also getting back a system that we installed initially on the International Space Station, Icarus International Corporation for Animal Research using space. We want to have small tags, many of them on a global scale. This was initially done on the ISS, on the International Space Station, because there were perturbations in the international collaborations. As you all know, this transmission was stopped, still functioning, still working, but we are not we're not handing out tags anymore that are working with the system, so it's not working anymore. But we have these small CubeSats already on the table, on the bench. They are shaken, they're tested, they're going up. In about a year, we'll have a new system with 6 satellites coming up. So this is already in the making and will provide a global data readout system, an IoT system for biodiversity. And I hope many of you will be able to use it because it will be cheap, available, and open source. Now the tags, the ones on the right, we thought at the time were marvels of engineering. Now they are dinosaurs 5 years later. On the left is the tag that we are now using in birds, in swifts, in swallows, in bats. A new bat paper is coming out next week, how they ride storm fronts in Europe. So this is done by these IoT devices that not only send a position, but they also send the entire sort of life history during this animal's time. In that case, they send an hourly report on the energy expenditure, on the pressure, altitude, on the temperature, and so on. And that can be done in systems, for example, ear tags that are really wearables. They are invisible to most people, like in this giraffe or gazelles in Africa. And they are linked to a system that allows people to participate in that, because we need, well, first of all, we are reliant upon the knowledge of farmers, indigenous people, people that live with these animals, because they know what these animals know. And we want to help them have good connections to these animals, but we also want to know what they know. And that is possible through these digital means now around the globe. There are already a lot of these systems out, but still too little. I mean, it's a very small subset of animals that is being tracked, minute, but it's getting there. Now, what are the health applications for that? And I've seen that Gerhard Dobler is here. So this is a project that he initiated, really exciting tick-borne diseases. Birds can carry ticks. They are carrying ticks between places. He and his team have investigated that in the past with genetic genomic methods. Now we can link the individual movement of these animals, like blackbirds, for example. We can check them at places here or in the north and see, are they tick infested? Do these ticks have diseases? Can release them and then see in real time where they are migrating. These are blackbirds just now on their way, recently migrated from Estonia, Finland, Latvia, directly sort of into the center of Europe. Interestingly, a friend of mine in Latvia tagged one blackbird that actually showed up in Constance and really close to the endemism center of this tick-borne disease that's close to my house in a horse farm. So I don't know if you sent that or if it was just really chance. Initially, we thought somebody's playing a joke on us, but it's really happening. And you also see on the right the data that we get from that, from each of those tags. This is just one tag. We see migration, we see incubation, we see when these animals are dead, when they are sick, when they are catastrophically dead, or when they are predated and then moved around by a predator. So these things can be distinguished now, and it's only getting better. Here you see another data set from the blackbirds, including at the time the ones from Moscow, and see how they spread across a continent or subcontinent in Europe. Avian influenza, a huge topic. We have worked a lot with people in Peru in the last months, because that has been a major problem there. Again, the same topic, you put a tag on an animal. Here it's a duck at Lake Constance, where people told us, oh, this duck is always here, this mallard, and then we don't see it one day and they say, oh, that's probably just around the corner. No, it's not around the corner. It probably had a fever conducted from somewhere else, got avian influenza, and we see that in the fever curves from these animals, especially if we look not just at one duck, but at several. This is done in collaboration with Jonas Waldenström and others in Sweden. But this duck has probably not only been just around the corner, but it may have been in Belarus, it may have been in Spain, it may have been in France. All of these things are pretty new. All these animals, as you know, do crazy things when you don't look. And especially they go in a week to Belarus and the next week they are back at Lake Constance and you felt that they have never been away. But in fact, they have connected the continent. They have intermingled with other ducks. These are different species of ducks, but in principle, the same system. So they move across half continents. And then when they get together with ducks, like where these diseases are often endemic in areas in Southeast Asia, where migrants interact with resident birds or with livestock, which is a fantastic system to clean out the fields, but there is the contamination possibility. And then that can jump over, as we all know, to different species groups and become a problem. But we can now anticipate that. And I think that's the key. We can anticipate and then at least get prepared. Now, the good thing is also that the predictability of the movements of animals is becoming better and better. There's also really good news from our colleagues at Columbia University in the US. They will come out with a new announcement in a few weeks of time. Really good news on their plans for the future, how to predict these things even better. So very exciting developments on all sides. And we think that this predictability will then give us a really good forecast for what these animals are doing. Now, what Kevin Morell in our group with colleagues has done is also to use these systems, test these systems on the ear wiggling of wild boar, and found that within about 3 hours, you can detect a massive change, and that is correlated. On the left, you see with the animal status with viremia, and on the right, you see that in about 3 hours, 3 hours after exposure, you can detect the presence of African swine fever in these animals. This is now a lab study, but it's now being redone in the field, not with experimental infection, but monitoring, and it seems to be really working out well. So very exciting that this can be done in near real time in the field. And also you get the data back if an animal is either has died or is being shot. Anything that you haven't read out from these tags is recorded in them, and you can then retrospectively look for very fine details of the behavior. But you can also send sentinels around the world, in that case, African flying foxes, Eidolon, Helvum. They are in large numbers going through the night skies of Africa. They are super important ecosystem service agents, planting probably hundreds of millions of trees every night. But they also go into areas where you have other diseases that are endemic there, that can be all kind of virus diseases that they don't necessarily transmit, but they have antibodies. So from the locations, we can then deduce where have those animals been that have seen these viruses, have developed antibodies, and then look further in those areas. And I think that's a very important aspect that is not used a lot because we didn't have the means so far, but in the future, this will be a fairly straightforward and easy system. For example, if you look at these tracks and you say where the red dot is, that's always where all of those animals that go through this area have some antibodies against certain diseases, then that's the area to look further. And I think that's a really important causal study for these kind of diseases. Now, I'm often asked, well, what do you do with all these data? And we say, well, that's not an issue. It is not even big data. It's sort of semi-big data or marginally big data. But the key is that there are community agreed methods to deal with these data, to automatically analyze them. And that can now be done in Move apps. It's a community platform where programmers and biologists interact. You can click together your programs. This is a democratization of information gain. So even people like me who can't program can do their own analysis, and that can also then be done by people around the world if I can do it. You can just click together what you need to know. You can get help from experts, and that's really exciting because it gives you a long list of public workflows that are done by experts, and every one of us can use that for running these things. And if you want to get an alert, then you get it on whatever you need, a WhatsApp, an email, or what it is. Now, this can be done, for example, in rhinos, when they tell us that they have problems. Sometimes that's still too late. We need other animals to report poachers before the rhinos see them, or before a disease strikes a certain type of animal. With our colleagues in Kruger Park, Louis van Schalkwyk, we can save a lot of animals through these systems, through these real-time systems. For example, animals that are snared because they behave differently, and that's the same for diseased animals. And then you also know from the proximity tags which other animals have been around. So our colleagues from Yale are studying that in buffalo to see which buffaloes interact and how their social systems change, also to understand whether the social system changes can be used as predictor for disease occurrence, which apparently is possible. I think this is doable. There's a lot of young people that are super excited about that. It's cheap, it's doable. There is a global alliance starting to work, and it's super exciting to see that this is being supported by the alliance. and that you all are part of that. And I think hopefully we have a lot to discuss after the two talks. So for now, thanks a lot, and I'm really keen to hear Diego's talk.
Thank you so much, Martin. That was an amazing presentation. Thank you for all these precious insights. Please keep your questions in mind. I'm going to hand over to Alice quickly.
Yes, also from my side, really, I think I can say I'm fascinated by your presentation, by the visuals. Thank you so much for breaking down this complex and yet for breaking it down, this content to us in a very understandable way. I just want to also mention that we have a record-breaking number of 98 participants in this webinar. I don't think any other Alliance event has reached such a high number. So thanks again to our prominent speakers. And now I would like to hand over to Dr. Diego Montecino Latorre. It's great to see you again. And if you're there, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Do you listen to me?
Yes, we can hear you. And now we can see you also.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Martin, for the presentation. I'm going to talk about what the work that we've been doing, trying to leveraging rangers into wildlife health monitoring, but also the development of a new system to manage the wide types of information that wildlife health surveillance contains. Okay, so I am assuming that most of the audience is aware of the impacts that diseases can have, not only in global health, but also in the conservation of biodiversity. Here I'm just exposing one example, very specific, which is Ebola virus disease that actually causes mass mortalities in great apes, and in the early 2000s, this disease actually put in peril several populations of these animals. Now, as you are aware, this is zoonotic, and I'm showing here a diagram of a small outbreak that occurred in Congo, where it was basically focused. The index cases were associated with hunting in a park, actually a protected area. And fortunately, in this case, there were only 9 or 8 people affected by it. However, this is a recent study, I think it's from this year or last year, where serology shows that hunters that go to natural habitats in Central Africa actually have higher levels of exposure to filoviruses and coronaviruses as well, among others. But from this little outbreak, you just need a small push to actually get into a disaster. And the figure on the right shows how the outbreak in West Africa, the Ebola outbreak in West Africa moved from natural habitats to urban areas through human-to-human transmission, causing over 20,000 deaths. So one of the tools that we have to prevent exposure to hazards for wildlife and as well for people, and also to have an early detection of cases or damage, and therefore giving us a window to react to these realities, is wildlife health surveillance. Wildlife health surveillance understood as the surveillance of diseases, pathogens, and toxins and pathogens in wildlife. However, we must have a reality check about the current capabilities of wildlife health surveillance on a global scale. Here we have quotes of previous authors that have highlighted the weakness of the systems globally. For example, this publication by WUA and this one by the group of Catherine Machalawa and other experts in wildlife health, they did 2 independent surveys to countries just to check out how are the wildlife health surveillance system going in these places. So you see that in both cases, with an N pretty close to each other, 103, 170, the percentages of reporting at least some sort of functional wildlife health surveillance system is about half countries. Then we can start assessing the quality of those systems, and then probably it gets even worse. One of the main interfaces for disease emergence and also for problems in wildlife associated with physical and chemical diseases are protected areas. They play a double role. They are very important to find natural-based solution to the crisis that the globe is facing now, the globe is facing now. But on the other hand, they are also surrounded by human development, meaning that in the areas within or on the borders, there are a lot of interfaces promoting wildlife, human, livestock contact. And the reality of wildlife health surveillance in these places is not better than what I just mentioned. However, this is the good news, is that there is an estimation of about 300,000 rangers in protected areas that are patrolling, and the need by 2030 of 1 million rangers patrolling these areas. Rangers can actually be a workforce because there is a massive number in the world that we need even more, and they can patrol amazing, outstanding distances and cover huge areas of land at these places. So, for example, here we have just one single study that involved, I think, if I remember right, 3 protected areas, and in 1 year, the rangers covered 75,000 kilometers of trails, covering an area of 24,000 square kilometers. Previous publications have already shown that they can actually detect diseases that are pretty obvious when they happen and actually even trigger a response to these problems, as is the case of the 2 examples that I'm showing here. Now, we made a survey with protected area data managers, asking them what is the situation of the rangers monitoring wildlife morbidity and mortality in protected areas. And we found, this is currently in review, the important thing is that we found that rangers do not always, or they don't necessarily collect information regarding morbidity and mortality. Doesn't matter if they actually see morbidity and mortality when they are patrolling. So we are losing information, but they do have the ability to identify and find these dead animals. So the question is how to integrate rangers without adding more workload, how to help them record wildlife health events, and how to standardize that recording. This is where technology comes from. And basically, the first thing that we have done so far is we establish a definition of wildlife health event that is specifically designed for rangers. And this means at least one observable and healthy animal plus all the other healthy animals around. The animals can be wild, domestic, and free range or captive, hunted as well. And we are actually asking them to collect environmental features. We also include physical or chemical causes of diseases going beyond potential infectious diseases. As you might be aware, diseases are caused by physical, chemical, and biological causes. So the idea is that we move from a case-based report to actually an event case report. You might say, wow, that's pretty rocket science. Well, actually, if you go to the database Empress I, which is developed by FAO, this is a really excellent platform that gathers information from all over the world, but it gathers what it gets, what is provided into it. And for example, here we have a case where in France, it was reported some sort of bird, it says domestic, I don't know which one, that was positive for avian influenza. What were the other birds around these birds? Was it farmed? Was not? What were the environmental realities of that animal? Completely unknown. So the technology specifically is the spatial monitoring and reporting tool, SMART. SMART is a technology that supports the management and administration of protected areas. It's open source and is composed by 3 systems. The first one is a SMART desktop. The second one is a SMART mobile, which is an application. And the third one is a server that connects SMART desktop, the desktop software, and the application. So a SMART desktop manages databases that contain information from the protected areas, but they also allow to set up forms on the data that we want or that the rangers are to must collect while they are patrolling. So those forms are not standardized. You can set it up as the user wants, and then once those configurations are made with respect to the form, it is possible to transfer that form into the applications. You provide the cell phones to the rangers, and basically the rangers can report and collect data while they are patrolling using the devices. If there is an internet connection, actually the information can travel online from the field into the offices and even trigger alerts to allow for rapid response in specific cases. The key thing is that Smart Sustainable is in version 8. Well, it's in version 7. Probably the number 8 is going to be released next year. And it has already a global distribution in more than 1,000 protected areas, more than 50,000 rangers trained, and national adoption in hundreds and dozens of countries, but the distribution includes, I think it's now 115 countries. So what we did next was to establish a form, a referential one called Smart for Health. And Smart for Health was developed with iterative development, meaning we propose a form, it went to the field, and then the users of the form will give us feedback back, and then we will modify correspondingly. This has 4 main questions. The first one is site description, which is, it contains a set of fields to describe what is going on in terms of the environmental conditions where the event is happening. And wildlife is exactly the same idea, but for wildlife species. Livestock to record livestock species, and then the animals and samples is in the case to track individual level information with or without samples collected from the animals. So I'm gonna click a little briefly here. If you want more details of what are the components and the different attributes, we have an online dictionary and manual that is currently in 5 languages, including Lao and Khmer. French, Spanish, and English. Let's go back here. Okay. As an example, for if the rangers find a group of animals or wildlife that belongs to the same species, they can use the category wildlife to start collecting the information with the specific fields, meaning species, we ask for the context, and then we request the number of animals per health status. Depending if they find sick or injured or dead animals, new attributes showed up that are asking about the condition of the animals. In this case, the same thing happened with the sick or injured individuals. What are the anomalies that they observe in these animals? If there are other anomalies, and what they think or their best guess with respect to the potential cause of death. This is an example of what happens with the animals that are tracked individually, and when you want to, rangers or other users are collecting samples from these individuals. This format allows that each sample is actually linked directly to the individual where it came from. So the fourth step was, okay, now we have the referential form. Let's go and talk and work with the national park agencies of different countries, and let's translate this form and insert that in the form that the rangers are already using in the corresponding countries. So that's what we have been doing. And in this case, we have people from the Peruvian National Park Service. And on the right, I'm showing how we are working with partners in Cambodia to develop an integrated version of SMART, meaning merging the form for health plus the form that they already have for the rangers. Local trainers then are trained, meaning this group of people are trained to actually record properly health events, identify health events, and then record them properly using this tool. And then the local trainers go to the field and they meet with the actual rangers, and they train rangers to collect data to identify health events and then record them with this tool seamlessly and properly. And now after that, data collection begins. So we can see here some examples of the events that rangers have found in 2 countries. And this is the current status of this. As I said before, these are a couple of examples of events that have been recorded. Just to keep in mind that this information would have been lost before we went for this initiative. So today we have the integration ready in 44 protected areas in 5 countries. Those 5 countries involve 4 languages. We have trained more than 200 rangers, and there have been more than 1,000 wildlife health events detected in a single year. We were able, as Wildlife Conservation Society, to develop this work thanks to the funding of these 5 agencies, And if you want to learn more details, I can let you, guide you to this manuscript that is in preprint. And I just want to show you that this is an international effort that has involved people from national agencies and local NGOs, universities, etc., meaning that we have several collaborators, most of them listed in this list of authors. Okay, so second part, the technology-based management of wildlife surveillance data. And just to start with this figure, I'm just trying to summarize here the outstanding variability of sources of information that we can get for wildlife health surveillance, including, as Dr. Martin just showed us, animal movement. So one of the challenges with wildlife health surveillance data is that it's very variable. You have many species involved that are placed in many habitats. You can get information from several actors that include, from one side, field veterinarians doing examinations on wildlife or observations on wildlife, researchers that are doing a very multi-level design, a really complex study that is long-term, or something as simple as a person that is watching the news or is going through social media and find a post on social networks that actually there is an animal that is dead reported in some place. But you also have vectors. Maybe there is a collection of environmental specimens or samples. You could integrate camera trap data as well, reports from communities, or even surveillance from wildlife markets. All this stuff can actually provide specimens, and those specimens can go to one lab or multiple labs that are, running diagnostics on those specimens, and then they get results. So it can get really complicated because you have a lot of parties involved in wildlife health surveillance. But on the other hand, the idea is that all of these parties can actually feed the system to get a better sense of what is going on with respect to hazards in wildlife. So a database systems recognize a need for wildlife surveillance. There are, again, several authors that before have recognized this need. And although this has data a little bit older, we can go, the other one is that harmonization of data is also a recognized need. So one thing is to actually collect data, but the other thing is that we actually, hopefully, we're doing it in a way that we can compare over time, but also over space. But now those quotes might be a little older, but now we have data that was published last year in a work conducted by the World Organization of Animal Health. And here they found that from 103 respondents, countries, their wildlife health focal points, they said that 64 of those 103 actually maintain records data on wildlife morbidity and mortality, meaning 62%. Okay, now, from this 62%, they ask okay, so what about the use of a database? And 40% of them say, actually, there's no database. And now if you go to non-sustainable system to manage information, such as spreadsheets or even the use of paper records, it came out that the response that those systems or that way to track information regarding to wildlife health was actually very important. Then it continues. This is a paper from Thailand. And actually, what I wanted to show you here is that to the question, having easy access to data collected by my own sector is a challenge in your jurisdiction for 50% of the respondents. Now, when they say, well, how difficult would it be to make improvements to it? 11% said that it would be very difficult or difficult. And how important it is? 64% says that it was very important. So this is the idea. What if many experts come together and design a data model that can handle the variety of wildlife health surveillance data and make this data model available free for everyone, so we can actually start pairing the way that we collect data and the way that we report our designs. So we accepted the challenge. And as part of the Wildlife Health Intelligence Network, which is an emerging community of practice of wildlife health surveillance actors, we decided to establish or start working on a data model that can actually accomplish this challenge. The Wildlife Health Surveillance Network, Wildlife Health Intelligence Network, sorry, it's composed by members of different organizations, including the World Organization of Animal Health, the World Health Organization, the Food of Agricultural Organization, several universities, the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative, Australia Health, and the United States Geological Survey, among others. So after 1 year of giving it a thought and with several iterations, we have come to this idea that we have units. A project is something as simple as the collection of articles associated with wildlife health in news, up to something absolutely big like the PREDICT project that tracked over 100,000 animals. I mean, it sampled more than 100,000 animals in 36 countries. Then we have a surveillance activity where it's to record the methods that are being used for a specific methodology to conduct surveillance. Field visits are the unit that tracks what was done in a specific trip to the field. A location is an area where the events are collected. Events is the equivalent of a wildlife health event, meaning in the case of a ranger, the detection of morbidity and mortality in wildlife. A collection is an effort associated with collecting sources, meaning traps or nets or camera traps, etc. Sources are the units that provide us with specimens, and there are 4 types of sources: at the group level of animals, at the individual level of animals, and environmental sources or arthropods. And finally, these sources provide with the specimens that go to diagnostic and attest. So what I want to mention here is that even though we can start that it looks really complex, it depends on what is your project or what is your surveillance activity. For example, in the case of a ranger that is only making observations, you just need to name the project as a ranger patrol, describe the methods, let's say rangers patrolling in protected areas, and then each patrol is a field visit, and then the location is potentially an area within the protected area, and the event is the location where the animals are found. And that's pretty much it. So you don't need to count with groups. You only need group sources in that case, but you don't need to use animal sources, environmental sources, and arthropod sources. If you want more details, also, there is a website in place where it explains what each one of these units means. This is a manual that guides you step by step. It provides several case scenarios, but also we have a dictionary with the fields that each one of those units have and the users should fill. So again, the idea is to make it useful for people using a wide range of surveillance designs, but they can land in one single specific spot. I just want to acknowledge that in the arthropod source, we have used the same data model or an adaptation of the data model of the Vector Source Gateway, which is a database for arthropod vectors and diseases based in the University of California, Davis, that is used in 26 states and by more than 239 agencies. So they know what they are doing. Now, of course, this is the final set of full units to allow that actually we have all the information associated with wildlife health surveillance, and also allows to adapt to different types of information and different designs. Now, what is a data model without a database? And therefore, we are currently, thanks to the funding from the WCPA of the IUCN, we are currently developing a database that takes in this data model and actually allows to start recording and storing data the way that I just, in the format that I just showed you. So you have projects, each project has surveillance activities. You can see here the details and the fields in each one of those surveillance activities. Files is an option to attach files of every kind, and there is a viewer of those files. So if you have a PDF, you can actually see the PDF right here. If you have pictures, you can see the pictures. Maps indicating the location of where the surveillance activities have been conducted, tabular data to see the context of the data in a flat form, among others. And that's pretty much it. 3 minutes more, sorry, but that's it.
No problem at all, Diego. Thank you so much. That was really impressive. Thanks a lot.
Yes, also from my side, thank you so much also for your fascinating presentation. Lots of visuals, and I'm sure all participants have already learned a lot, and I can see we already have some interesting questions in the chat. And since it's not 100 questions, but only a few, we even have time for our colleagues who want to ask the questions to unmute themselves and ask them themselves. We will start with Leah. If you're there, you can unmute yourself, and if your connection is stable enough, also put on your camera and ask away.
Thank you very much, Alice. Thanks very much to the speakers, very inspiring presentations. To the first speaker, Martin Wikelski, my question was a very nice analysis of available data, but how much computing capacity do you need for that? Is it feasible, for example, for ministries of environment in, let's say, low resource settings? Thank
Yes,
you.
so if you do the Move app analysis, that is all done on servers remotely. So if you have lots and lots of analysis in the future, maybe there will be an outsourcing to an Amazon service or a cloud service. But so far, this is all free, and you don't need any local resources. You only need to know which animals you have, what kind of analysis you want to do. You pick that from the site. You set up your data stream, your analysis stream, and then you have it. So it's no local resources needed.
There is no problem with data privacy?
Well,
because ministries can be picky about that.
In principle, not, because the data are, in that case, in MoveBank or in your own data systems. You somehow have to access those data through the web, but those are secure servers. There's always the possibility that somebody breaks in. We know that, but
Thanks a lot.
As of now, we didn't. It's okay, but we have situations where, for example, state of California wants all the data collected, state money to. There are other countries that want to do that as well, and that means we are now setting up instances so that these units that want to have their data locally but still communicate with the rest of the world can do that.
Thank you so much, Martin. And thank you for the question, Leah. We have another question from Dr. Nazir Udin. Please feel free to address your question. If this is not feasible. Yeah, okay.
Hello.
There you are. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is very interesting topics. Actually, we are enjoying here. I actually used my interest is a bit more in here because I'm a vet, but I'm working for wildlife trafficking, and my whole conservation careers I used a smart patrolling. So I know that there is a couple of things like when we do patrolling, we can continuously take make events or take GPS points and take informations, but also there is features like independent incidents. So when Diego presenting, I just wanted to know whether like smart health event means any independent incidents, or when I am taking ecological observations or crime related incidents, I can also take health events as a continuous part, or I am just taking a separate event for health as independent incidents. That was actually my questions to know. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Good question, actually. For the rangers specifically, we recommend to, as I said before, to bring the attributes and categories that we have on our referential form into their patrol package, right? I'm going a little bit on the jargon of smart for being specific with the response. So that means that the rangers record the events associated with morbidity and mortality as part of their patrol. And with that, every single other event that they found within the patrol that it's associated with other monitoring activities, logging, cattle ranging, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So going to your question, we do that because actually rangers don't like to switch from the patrol to independent incident. However, we are starting to try out a form for communities. And for the communities, we are using independent incidents because they don't go out to patrol. They just report what they see. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I got your points. Regarding the communities, actually, either are you providing a smartphone or a smart device to the communities, or just they will record information in a spreadsheet or a smart petrol logbook or data
No,
sheet?
they have their own devices, and we train them to install the application and to understand how it works.
Wow, fantastic! Something new to know. Thank you very much for your outstanding presentation. Very happy.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm really loving this discussion. So I will hand over to Gustavo Monti. If you're there and if it's accessible to you to unmute yourself, you can just ask the question.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. I think my question is a bit related with the previous one. So maybe because there was some interference. So either for Martin or for Diego. So both systems are, well, the first thing is freely available. And if there are any, let's say, formal procedure to do for accessing the data, or is how can be this approached? Yeah.
Maybe just for MoveBank and MoveApps, they are completely free. The tags, we want to have production contributions from the global north and market it up a little bit so there are enough free ones for those areas that don't have the money to do it right now. So there will be hopefully sort of an easy exchange of systems and information across the globe.
Yeah. Are included also animals like small mammals or rodents, things, animals like this?
Eventually, yes. So right now, we want to have a very low number of different types of tags, because that's a major cost saver if you can scale up. But there will be something for small mammals, in that case also collars, small collars that will hopefully serve that community as well.
Okay, thank you.
On my side, well, it's on one piece is smart, right? So smart is freely available, and you can download the app and the software actually, no problem. On the side of course, you need investment on phones and potentially a server if you want to install the Smart Connect. And also if you want to go for Smart for Health, we strongly recommend that we get resources to actually conduct a training. It doesn't take long. It's about a week. But actually, the largest or the main chunk of time that has to be devoted to the implementation is afterwards, just to track that the rangers are doing well and the data managers are doing well. From the side of the database, well, the database is, as I said, it's going to be a product based on a data model developed by several experts that work already with wildlife health data. And that database has as a goal to standardize the way that methods are reported, the way that the data is recorded, but also to support wildlife health surveillance systems or small projects. If you want, but let's say a person wants to create a project that collects information from their own findings in a beach, and that's totally fine. The vision is to have that database available in the independent instances for whoever wants to use it, okay? For now, as we're starting, what we can support is a private instance under the same server. And the other thing is, my expectation is that the database will be available for the public by the end of the first quarter of 2025. So we are still, making adjustments and testing the functionality, but it will be there. So we are interested as a community of practice that you can buy, reach out, and use it and test it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Great. So checking the time, we have time for 2 more questions, and one goes over to João Cota from the University of Lisbon. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Martin and Diego for the very interesting talks. A question for Diego was regarding the this Impress I platform. How does it compare with the WildHealth platform of the Animal Health Organization? Is it very different, or do the same events that are recorded in WildHealth get recorded also on Impress? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I'm just a user of both from the perspective of learning what's the data available. I have not used WildHealth to actually input data. There are differences. One is for Impress I basically collects data from all over the place about events on health in animals in general, livestock and wildlife. And one of the sources is WildHealth. And WildHealth is more about wildlife health focal point reporting from what is the situations in countries with respect to specific diseases. But if you want to learn more, I suggest that you contact my colleague here, Claire, that I see her in her screen, or Fernanda Orea, or anyone from the team on Info.
Yeah, I can provide information on this point. So WildHealth collect data on diseases that are listed by WOA. So it's a list of about 117 diseases and emerging disease for which the notification is mandatory. So the countries have obligation to report this information when the disease is detected in the countries. And we assessed in 2022, I think 90% of the data in Impress I comes from WildHealth. So 91%, so 9% of extra data in Impress I compared with WildHealth. So the mandate to collect information on listed disease, so this disease that are for which there is a legal framework for global notification, are collected primarily by WildHealth.
Okay, thank you so much also for the clarification. Well, then I guess the last question goes to Tracy McNamara, please.
Thank you for these phenomenal presentations. A quick question for Diego. With your form, with the smart thing, are there drop-down menus for them to enter the information, or are you using natural language processing?
You are still muted.
Thank you for the question. We have prioritized list of options. I mean, multi-selection or single selection fields. So they are predetermined options that we translate with the help of local partners.
Okay, and then second question, do detection of these unusual events prompt an investigation? And is this information shared with public health so we can link unusual events in wildlife with unusual events in humans?
Yeah, that's where we want to go. Now, for the second part, that's where we want to go. We are working specifically in 3 countries to actually make that happen. In Cambodia, it already happens to a certain degree. where information from wildlife morbidity and mortality actually goes to the public health. And actually, we have seen one example at least where the reverse was where a hospital, human hospital, had a bunch of dead birds, and they called the wildlife health team to actually go and track that. So there is a network there that we actually, as WCS, have been a main implementator. The first part, what was the first part? Sorry.
Do the unusual events prompt investigation?
Yeah. The answer is not that I'm aware yet with a SMART directly, meaning I have not seen the cycle where the data collected from a SMART will trigger a response. However, what I do know is that the two examples that I show in the presentation, those two outbreaks, one in an endangered deer and the other one in an endangered banteng, they were reported by rangers, and they did trigger a response, and the responses were successful.
And one final question, because we're out of time. I noticed that one of your supporters is DITRA. Are you using field deployable diagnostics like nanopore MinION if there is an unusual mortality event to get a real-time diagnosis in wildlife of an unknown?
Yeah. So I am aware that my organization, the health program, we have used field-based diagnostics in the past. Now, I am the data manager, so I'm just saying I don't know exactly the details of what is going on in the field for every other country, but I'm aware that the ones we have tried, we are having issues with the brand or something like that, not with the product itself, but actually with the sustainability of the company.
Okay. Thank you. And I just want everyone who was on this call to know that we organized and held a workshop on harmonization of wildlife data with Pacific Northwest National Lab in May. And I think that one of the most incredible things that came out of that was a finding that these high-level data scientists can extract data from Excel spreadsheets. So that's big, given that most people are using Excel spreadsheets, not only overseas, but right here in the United States. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy McNamara. I believe it's the same in Europe. So very useful information as well to the end. Thank you so much. Well, dear audience, thanks for joining our special webinar today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did together with you. And now for our last, and back to Alice.
Excellent. I get the famous last words. I think we've already said it all. Thank you so much again for being here. Very, very, very well done, Martin Wikelski and Diego Montecino. We really hope to work with you in future again. Have a great evening or day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much again. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.